session, was it a couple of weeks ago? And then I said, why don't we do a show together? And you're like, all right, get some questions together. And it just came together like that. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And I did send you some questions.
Yes, you did.
And, yeah.
Yes, you did.
But, you know, it just, like in terms of my own thing, and that always feels like, it's funny, like I guess we all have a focus of what we're interested in this ascension process and what we're going through now. And for me, it's been a lot of stuff with relationships and, you know, old programs. And I just feel like, am I on the wrong track or something? Is there something wrong with me that I have all these programs about relationship coming up? Like, can I get over it? When am I going to, can I get into the 5D already?
Well, you know, if you want me to play with that,
sure,
basically
yeah.
all of the stuff that's coming up in any form, including relationships and so forth, is to prepare you so that you would be in a 5D, because in a 5D state of consciousness, you're not carrying any baggage. You're not carrying any attachments to people. You're not putting value, meaning, labeling, you know, all of this stuff around relationships. Because really relationships in its natural state is just two people coming together because they feel the connection and there is a sharing that goes on. But not only is there a sharing, it's a very natural state of just being themselves. Okay. So in essence, it's not about you now need to adopt somebody else's life stream or that you have to mold yourself to meet or please someone. It's about really being yourself. And there's no hang-ups and programs and belief systems in 5D where, oh, if I don't act a certain way, I may lose this person. If I'm not this way, I may, you know, affect this or that. There is no attachments that, you know, if some reason somebody says something to you, say a partner that you're in a relationship, you won't have an emotional reaction. You'll basically be able to hear it. This is the thing that happens. A lot of people say, well, we listen to our partners, we communicate with our partners, but the real question is really, is there communication and actually listening going on? Because in essence, if you are run by programs, if you have certain triggers that come on, your mind will filter. You will only hear part of it, and then the rest of it is all fill in the blanks, which the ego mind will go and plug in. So you're thinking that you're hearing one thing when it's not what's being communicated, say, with your partner, for example. You're hearing something totally different. And a lot of that stuff is either stuff that we've learned from watching other people or experiencing it personally ourselves in a past relationship, or the fact that we've adopted ideas that if somebody says this or acts this way, it means this. So even if your partner says to you, you know, something very simple, you know, I'm not really liking this, you know, this way that we're, you know, choosing to communicate, for example. If you got a program around nobody listens to you or that people judge you or anything of that nature, automatically you switch into judge. Well, my partner is judging me and so forth, and how, you know, that's not right and this and that. And the communication had nothing to do with that. It was more of an opening in regards to saying, you know, we'd like to improve the communication or something of that nature, because you're not really hearing what is being said, what is intended, and what is being shared from a loving space. We're just interpreting, just taking a few little words, and a lot of times it's just one little line or 2 or 3 words, and then we make a whole dialogue, and that's the programs. And that's why things are like that coming up. In 5D, you can't bring all of that stuff with you. Because in essence, that doesn't work. Because in that level of consciousness, you see a relationship for what it is. A relationship is just a coming together of 2 playmates. And I use the word playmates because they are playmates. Everybody's a playmate, but 2 playmates, they play a very specific role for each other. And it's just really to assist each other to either enhance the dance and whatever else they're experiencing, or in some way to assist each other to refine their way of how they interact, communicate, play, and so forth, right? And the thing is, in that regards, you're in such fluidity that in a fifth dimensional state of consciousness, there's no idea of ownership, no idea of control, no idea that I need to have all these things play out before I can actually feel good about anything, right? So those don't get into the mix. And so what's happening now is a lot of people, because they still have a lot of stuff that's active and their soul has decided to go into fifth dimensional consciousness, and they're saying, okay, look at all these powerful waves that are coming in. Let me use this as much as possible to bring forth all of these stories, programs, belief systems, and so forth, that a lot of it is archaic, very, it's come from past lives. Some of it has been handed down from lineage, from generation to generation. A lot of it is still being taught from one person to another, through movies, through television shows, and so forth. But the thing is, that is not really our true operating system. So it wants to bring us to more of a true operating system, to our true natural state. And this is why this stuff is coming up right now. So, and even in your particular case, if you're having challenges with relationship, it's helping you to kind of see the definition applied to it, and all the attachments, the cords, the entanglement, and the who says what, who does what, who plays this role, who doesn't play that role, why did he do this, and that wasn't fair, or something like that. None of that is even acceptable when it comes to, when you're looking at it from a higher state. We kind of lost you there. You went dark on us.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Hold on.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we have everybody still online anyways. We're just not seeing you that clearly and bright.
For some reason, I went away. I don't know how to get back.
Oh, okay.
Hide. Okay. I don't want to hide.
All right. Do you have the video?
Okay.
Okay.
I see myself, but I don't see you. So that's not going to look, that's not going to be right. I see myself caught in you're suspended.
You're suspended animation right at the moment.
Well, at least I look good, right? And no, it was weird because my computer kept saying it was going to do something with Mercury's in retrograde. It was doing an iTunes thing, and then I had to stop it. So I seem to have lost the page, but I don't know how to refresh.
Okay. You're on a PC or a tablet or whatever?
A Mac.
A Mac? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So either you're on another page. So if I don't know if you can scroll from left to right on your the pad to see if you're on another page.
Oops. Okay, hold on.
I'm just going to check to see if your video is still active. Panelist.
Come on.
Yeah, you're active.
Weird. Maybe it's in one of these. No. No. I see myself on the Facebook thing.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself, but am I moving? Am I still not moving?
No, you're not moving. You're not moving at all.
Okay. Should we I'm sorry. Do I have to start again, or what?
Well, you can sign off and then come back in with the same link and see if we can get it going again. I'll still be here. I'll hold the space.
Okay.
If I log off, then we drop everybody. So.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know how to log off, but.
If you go to the bottom right-hand corner, it says "Leave the meeting" or something, and or something of that nature.
Oh, here I am. Okay. I see you.
All right.
Where's my picture?
You should be right next to me, unless you're.
Okay, wait.
There you go. You're back. You're back.
Okay. Do you see me?
Yes, I see you perfectly.
Okay. So I don't see myself, but that's okay.
Okay. So when you go to the very top right-hand corner, it should say gallery, and if you click gallery, then you see both of us side by side.
Yes.
Okay. Except that you went a little darker now. That's all.
Oh,
even more.
I did. Exit full screen. This is better. This is better. Okay. I'm going to brighten it up. It's this, I'm telling you, I was trying to get this light to work. Couldn't get the light to work. It's like a comedy of errors today.
Yeah. Well, it's stuff happens. That's for sure. Okay. Well,
all right. Here I am.
Let's continue.
We're back.
Let's continue. So yes, a lot of people are having, what can look like challenges with relationships and so forth, but it's not really about the challenging of the relationships, because relationships are very powerful tools to kind of show you what your understanding, your operating system around relationship is about. It's also, it's a good relationships actually serve very much so because the two partners or the two playmates do have a tendency to push each other's buttons, so that it brings up certain programs and stuff like that, so that we could see it and go through the process of seeing how it's still playing in your life, and to kind of let it go in a sense, because we don't have to carry that any longer. And that's the reason it does. I mean, the buttons are there to kind of come up so you can see where you're at in your state of understanding and consciousness and so forth, but really what's active in your operating system. Because right now, it's the only way you can tell, because a lot of these operating systems that we've adopted actually keep our vibration very low. Okay? So in that regards, we don't want to be in a situation where any little thing can lower our vibration, can lower our state of our accessibility to our state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And then, because our reality, how we create our reality, how we experience our reality is very much based on your operating system and your frequency. So the moment you get triggered, for example, and you drop drastically in your access to state of consciousness, and your vibration drops, you're actually now going into almost like you're shifting channels, and you're actually seeing another version of everybody in your reality. You're also going to what you can call like a parallel world in a sense around you, because that one matches that particular frequency, because you've gone into that frequency. So in that frequency, you have everybody able to play at that level with you, right? So you're just kind of going, well, you know, I'm watching a comedy show right now, but I feel like I just got triggered. I think I need to have some drama. So let me switch the channel to the drama channel. And then, of course, all the actors and actors, or what we call people that are playing on the screen, are going to be all dramatic, because you're going into the drama channel rather than the comedy channel or the fun and loving channel. So this is what happens with our reality. And for us to be able to function at that point, you say, okay, well, we want to remove the tendency to go into that drama channel, or to go into that channel of depression or heaviness or thriller or something of that nature, right? So that's really what all of this stuff is playing out to do for us at this point in time. And that's what we're doing. And it is challenging for people, because especially with the energies coming through, some of them are pretty intense, and they're coming in very powerfully. So as they come in, you know, they have a tendency to kind of stimulate certain things that may be on the background. So bringing it up to the surface, you may not be triggered as instantaneously because of the energies, but it becomes much more active, so that you can get triggered very easily by anyone saying anything at that point in time. And it doesn't always have to be a trigger, because at times it's just a realization or a feeling that you will feel. And then you ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What's going on in that regards? And then from there, you can tell really what's happening on the back end of what that program or the belief system or perception or adopted idea is all about. And then you can always easily just ask yourself, well, do I use this? How do I do this? Do I want to let it go or shift it or anything of that nature? And that's where you have the freedom to do so. And that's what the energies are doing right now. The energies are stimulating us to be able to see things a lot quicker, bringing closer to the surface what's there, so that it can be seen easier. So on the surface, it still may require some triggering, and the triggering could be self-triggered. It can be from anything that we're experiencing around us, or someone playing a particular role. But it's so close to the surface now that it's easily brought up, and you can actually engage in it and be able to see it. Because a lot of times with the energies, before the energy is increasing, it may have been set really low or deep. People go to some real deep stored, ideas, programs, emotions, and whatever else. But the energies are allowing it to come to the surface, so it's easier to see and easier to trigger. And it's not a triggering because it's a bad thing. In essence, it's a triggering so that we actually are really on the fast track of noticing what we can do, right, a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. Now we have Joanne that's raised her hand.
Okay.
So we can allow her to talk if you like.
Oh, sure.
Okay, go ahead, Joanne.
Hello, Joanne.
Hello, Joanne. Oh, she's on mute. I don't know if I can unmute her, but let's try. She may have to unmute yourself. So Joanne, at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a little microphone. If you're on your computer, you just click that little red cross that goes across the mic, and that will unmute you.
Oh, well.
Sometimes again can get a little challenging. That's,
you know, Mercury's in retrograde.
okay. Well, we'll just continue, and then
okay.
we'll let Joanne figure it out. I'm just I can't seem to unmute her, so she's got the one that can unmute herself. So okay, so Joanne, if you can't unmute yourself and you want to type in the message, you can do it in the chat, or you can do it on the Q&A, which is straight at the bottom. If you click Q&A, you can type in there.
In the chat, you mean?
Well, yes. If you look at the bottom, it should say participants, Q&A, polling, or maybe polling.
Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes.
Either that or in the chat. Either one is fine. We'll see it.
Okay. Well, I agree with you. Just to say about relationships, I agree that there's a great value to being triggered, or to being in a relationship, because then it often does trigger us. Not that everybody's getting triggered. I'm sure somebody like you don't ever get triggered. Well,
I wouldn't say that. I mean, because we all have our own triggers, and it may not be, one thing like a relationship or something like that, but there are other things that become triggers because, living life and experiencing ourselves with our journey at this point in time, we have to understand that we pick up stuff along the way, So in essence, some of the stuff is handed down through the lineage, some stuff is handed down in different ways that we experience life. So in that regards, we all have some form of, programming and stuff like that we take on that, may not be on the surface for any period of time for a good portion of your life. And that kind of was very prominent in my own life too, because I noticed that I wasn't really having stuff coming up. Not that I can say completely, but it was a minimal to what a lot of people were experiencing. And then a few years ago, it almost like something changed, and it was something that changed, that I needed to have a deeper understanding with that. So all of a sudden, I started having what you can call a lot of those triggers coming up on various areas in my life, right? So, there were some beliefs around certain things in my life that for example, there were times that we were going through challenges, which I didn't really feel, we were in, besides poverty, we were also in situations where, you're coming in a household that there was a lot of, you can call violence, or you can call, today's considered violence. Those days it was kind of norm. You beat the kids up just for the sake, because you were just pissed off or not having a good day, or you had too many drinks or something of that nature, right? So stuff like that, or feeling that, people didn't understand you or anything like that. It never fazed me as much at all. I mean, the experience wasn't great at times, but it had disappeared. Like it almost like it never even existed. And then a few years ago, I started to come to the surface. And so I had to look at my own programs, and I was actually surprised, because it's like, wow, I didn't even realize they were even there. So yeah, we can't say that we're, 100% free. We can get to that point, and that's the purpose of it. Mm-hmm. So even with myself, with the work that I was doing and have been doing for a long, long time, I still had stuff there that, it was never close enough to the surface to even see. To the point it wasn't even being triggered, but then it started coming up to the surface, so that, okay, I can see this coming up, and I need to address it. So that's, I have to do my own work. I actually use a lot of the processes I teach other people to do to clear up my stuff. And so, yeah, it's not, some people are perfect or anything like that. I mean, we are all working towards, we're perfect already, but we're all going to the state where, we want to be as clear as possible for many of the programs that we have taken on through, our inverted 3D experience of life,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a relief to hear that we're not alone. I mean, like you also have some of those programs, and that you've, you know, it's good to hear that you've used that for yourself, the clearing process. So, and that you are advocating for us to do the same thing, so that, because you can't work around the clock to do the clearings on all of us. It's just not possible. You're one person, and
Yeah, true enough. And the thing is, too, the reason
yeah.
I teach the program is because it's not only that, is because it happens all the time,
Yeah.
and I know some people have said, it seems like a bottomless pit, as much as I clear some stuff, there's more stuff coming out. Does it ever come to an end? What are we doing? Is this going to go somewhere at some point? Well, the thing is, once you start on a roll, you're going to start bringing stuff up more and more and more until you get to the point where you're done with all of that. And that's the thing. Plus, there's also a readiness that is required. So certain things we're not ready to face yet. And I don't mean because we're afraid of it, because, emotionally we're not ready for it in our level of understanding and so forth. So then, it may be delayed. So for example, you might be doing some clearing, and then something doesn't come up until later because you've done a bunch of other things in front. Then this other thing that was in the dip. For example, some people have had, say, for example, self-confidence issue, self-worth issues, and so forth, right? So they deal with those, and they get good with that. And the self-love thing, which is basically stop judging yourself. So it's really not so much about the self-love. It's stop judging yourself or comparing yourself. And then all of a sudden the love is already there anyways. It was never gone. So once you've dealt with all of that, all of a sudden the sexual abuse may come up, for example, which wasn't there before. Now, even though that was experienced and it was kind of hidden away, and the reason it was hidden away is because first we weren't ready to cope with it. So now you've cleared all this stuff, and all of a sudden the sexual abuse stuff comes up. Now, why is that coming up now? Well, because you needed to take some of the other stuff out, and while you were cleaning those up, you became more prepared and more ready to deal with something that may look a little bigger. So that's the only reason that other stuff come up. I'm just giving you an example here. It's not, that's the case for everybody.
Yeah.
But the example is, you're going to go into the stuff that's easier to deal with at first, the stuff that actually is clouding whatever's there. Once you've done that, then you start showing the other layers that are coming up. And sometimes the layers that come up feel a little bigger. But once you've already started clearing some of that stuff, what happens is that you become more proficient at it. And you now are more easily able to go into observer state rather than a reactive state. So when you see something like sexual abuse, which is huge for a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, there's people that do have that. And a lot of times the sexual abuse is an interpretation, but it does, I'm not here to discount it one way or another. But when we have that type of trigger coming up, okay, if we are not already been doing this for a while, doing other clearing process and be able to go into observer state, you can easily get lost in that whole emotional roller coaster of, the triggers and so forth, and the heaviness and the fears and the judgment or whatever might come up to it. But because you've been practicing, and when I say practice, you're actively been doing on other things, you can easily remind yourself, oh, okay, let me step back and be the observer. And then when you're in the observer state, you can see the event completely different than you would when you're engaged. Because then what seems so real, so intense, and it almost feels like it's acting, that you're presently playing with that, you're actually now seeing it by stepping back as the observer. You're now seeing it almost like a movie that you were one of the actors in it. Okay, so you were the actor in the movie, or the actors, whatever. I think they call them all actors now. But you were the actor in the movie. Okay, but you're watching yourself, and now when you're watching yourself, you're able to see it a completely a different view than you would have in a sense of when you're engaging it. So at that point in time, say, okay, what was really taking place? How do I feel about it? Did I actually have a choice? Can I shift? Because realistically, even when we think we didn't have a choice, we always had a choice. It's just that we weren't aware there was a choice, but that's part of the whole experience, is to feel that you don't have a choice. It's the same thing as us experiencing separation when it's not even possible. but we create the illusion of it, right? And that's it. So when we're talking about the actual program, like the programs that I've put together and I work and share with people, they were designed because of working with people for 35 years of doing clearings, doing all of that stuff. But what I also noticed is that when the triggers were coming up from myself, which weren't before and then started some years ago, I found that while I was using my own tools, I found that it was a little harder to do it on myself, because you can easily get pulled and distracted from doing the parts. So that's when I did some upgrades, and then I found that writing it down and then asking the questions separately helped. And then I added a couple of other things to it to be able to get more effective, so that you would be able to do it yourself. So writing it down was one huge part of it. The other part was actually just kind of when you're observing it, to go into the observer state, because if you're going into the engaged state, then it's harder, because you can easily get pulled into it. Now, the other thing is you have to remind yourself of the lure, because if you have a sub-program of being a victim, for example, then what happens in that state is that the moment something becomes active, or as a memory or a program comes up, if it reminds you of a victim state, because the victim state thing is still active, then you get pulled in easier. It's like somebody showing you a candy or a donut or a pastry that you really, really love. And it's like, oh yeah, I can have some more of that, something like that. So that's how it happens with the what do you call it, victim state, because it's like as much as you see as a victim, some people feel at times they feel that being a victim is disempowerment, but other times it's really, really delightful. Because then they can hide behind it. Well, I had no say in the matter. I did not create this. It was somebody else. And because it was somebody else, I didn't have a choice. And not only that, you don't actually have to take any accountability or even empower yourself to say, you know something, I have the power, I have the capacity, I can change any part of this. Instead of going, oh no, they're the victimizers and I'm just the victim here. And poor me, now I'm damaged goods. Now I can get pity from people. Now I can hide. Now I have a lot of reasons why I don't have to perform. I have a lot of reasons why I don't have to act a certain way or something like that. That's what the lure is when we go into victim state, okay? Because it's loaded. It's not just only your stuff. When you're tapping into the victim state, you're also going into the archive of information from the collective. It's not like you're taking on the collective per se because I want to have the victim state as a collective. You already have the victim state in yourself that's being triggered. And then if you allow it to go deeper and you allow it yourself to really indulge in it, like it's like you fall in the mud and you're going to say, oh, well, I'm just going to roll in it and just stay in there to see if I can go deeper or anything of that nature. Then that's when you're now tapping into the archives of the collective. And there is tons of victimizing or what you call victim programming, energies, emotional charges, vibrations and frequencies all in that area. And there are millions upon millions of stories and reasons and so forth that can be taken on as much as possible, bits and pieces. So this is the thing. So that's why the observer state, you don't actually allow yourself to go into the victim state. You see the victim state. And then you can see, okay, why am I feeling like a victim? There could be a story, well, people have always taken advantage of me. All right. And then you want to look at the story around why people are taking advantage of you or something of that nature, because that's just a story. Because in essence, when we truly understand, Claudia, and this is for everybody, when we truly understand that we are fully in charge of our experience, we are the master creator here. Okay. And anyone that comes in and plays with us are given permission to do so, even though we at the mind level do not always recognize that. We see it and we block it out. because the mind is going, no, we're not going to look at that. We're going to look at all the other stuff that the environment around us controls us and so forth. But truly, you have the power to do that, and that you have actually given the instructions to co-create or to allow certain things to be played out, right? Or to actually indulge in going into that, what you call channel, and experience that part of it. So in essence, when you really start to remind yourself over and over again that I am actually in charge, and I have a catch to this, because the collective has this really heavy program, and I'm sure all of us have experienced it at one point or another, okay? When we go into this whole idea that we are the designer, the one that is actually creator, okay? Then there's this heavy program that kicks in. It's a default program. It's a kickback program that exists in the collective from the inverted matrix that is now supported by a bunch of egos. And that is, oh, I just manifested something horrible, that I'm a bad creator, or that it's my fault. That's a huge one. It's my fault, right? Because it says, yes, you've created it, you've accepted it. Instead of seeing the beauty for the reason that it's there, you now blame yourself for the event or the experience or whatever you're feeling for, because that's the default from the inverted matrix and also the ego mind. It's saying, oh, you screwed up. You did not do it right. And this is what happens. People walk around and saying, I'm attracting all these bad things in my life because it's, I'm a bad person, this and that. No, that's not true. But the collective will let you believe that, because that's the only way it can keep you, in that sort of unstable state, and also to pull you away from the idea. And that's just, again, the idea that you are this powerful being. Because once you remind yourself, I am a powerful being here, and I'm not going to look at why I created this. And it's not like, what did I screw up to create this? You don't look for that, because there was no screw up. What is the purpose of this? How do I benefit from this? What am I trying to see here that I have been ignoring? What is driving me that is ready to be let go of, so that I can go to the next stage of my life, so I can actually be more in alignment with my fifth dimensional consciousness? So the point is, never see anything that's playing out in your life as something bad happening to you. You see it as, wow, great creation. What's the message in here? What do I need to see? What do I need to understand? Don't go into the idea that I've miscreated, or that I screwed up, or that, that I've done something wrong, or that it's my fault, or anything like that. You don't go into any of that. And the thing is, if you want to communicate with your higher self, okay, and you want to get a substantial answer, an answer that is going to assist you, because a lot of people say, I'm asking my higher self, and I'm not getting the clarity. It's the questions too that you ask, because a lot of times the questions are really not focused to be able to give you an answer that you can actually understand. Like if you're going in, like for example, somebody has an issue happening in their life, or they get a trigger, okay, or a sequence of triggers. And if you go to your higher self, why is this happening to me? Why is this always happening to me? Why is this happening to me? You're not going to get an answer of any substance whatsoever. But if you go in and say, wow, this is happening to me, I'd like to get a further clarity and understanding what is really taking place at this time, so that I can be able to see exactly what it is and make adjustments, and to see any possible programs, belief systems, or stories that no longer serve me, that I can move forward. Now you're going in, and instead of seeing it as an obstacle, you see it as a diamond that is shining on something that you can now say, ah, great, somebody's turned on the light, I can see it, let me go play with this. Okay? This is key for people, right? See everything, even if it's labeled as bad, because that's what the label is from an ego inverted 3D idea concept. Anything that happens to you, and say, okay, great. And that already changes a lot of things just by saying great, okay? And not in a sarcastic way. Great, because it's great, okay? Fantastic, I've created this. And you're not going in, oh, I screwed up and I'm creating badly. No, no, no. I created this. I co-created this. I accepted this challenge. I accepted this part of it. I truly now, you ask yourself, I truly want to understand what it's showing me. What do I need to pay attention on, and so forth. And that leads you exactly where you need to go with that valuable experience that you plugged in. So you don't have to keep repeating it because you're going right into it. And if you write it down, it's even more powerful because then you could actually follow it. Because the mind has this beautiful thing, and I'm going to share it with you. Okay? And you've seen it. When you're trying to do clearing on your own, and you're just basically trying to follow the trail, okay, where it leads to, what story is there, what program is there. If you're doing it all in your mind, as you're going down the trail, your mind has a tendency, the ego mind says, oh, let's forget about this, let's forget about that. And you're going there and you're forgetting all the pieces that led you there and what the pieces were that made that become more evident what it was, okay? So the mind has a tendency to kind of disregard some of the things that you're seeing. And in fact, it actually makes you forget. And I have found it, this was very powerful for myself too, when I was looking at it, it actually distracts you because it pulls you away to another thought. Mm-hmm. Like all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, I'm having this situation with my mother. She's acting a particular way, blah, blah, blah. You're falling down that path and it goes, oh yeah, remember your friend did this? Oh yeah, oh, by the way, you know, remember when you were in school and somebody said this to you? And it's like, totally unrelated. And it's like, why am I going here? It's distraction. It's the ego mind saying, we're not going to let you see what's there because then you're gonna figure out what I'm doing. You know, you're gonna figure out the program, right? But if you write it down, you've put it in on writing down, you can now look back and say, okay, because even if it tries to distract you, you have it in written form to say, yeah, what about this? And then you plug that in. And this is one of about 2 years ago, I think. It might be a little longer than that. Well, it wasn't the last retreat. It was a retreat before. We covered all of that, very detailed about writing everything down because it was, and that was my self-discovery from myself, doing it on myself. This is why I really appreciated that I had to go through some of my program clearing because it really helped me to find a way that worked that other people could do when they're doing it on their own. So it was all about that. So these are just some key tools in regards to that. But one thing that's important, no matter what it is, if you're being triggered, okay, that's usually an indicator that there's an active story, program, belief system there. So then you go and, okay, great, this triggered. What's the story here? I'd like to see it. You know, I want to understand it, whatever you do, right? A lot of times what happens to people, they get triggered, they go through the emotional thing. If you need to do that because you feel that that's going to be fun, so do that for a while. You know, allow yourself to feel it, allow yourself to go through it. And it's actually very powerful, especially if an emotion is very strong. Give yourself the opportunity to feel it. You know, go into the whole feeling of it. And if you allow yourself to feel it, you're not suppressing it, you're not projecting it, then you'll notice that it fades fairly quickly because it doesn't stay very strong. Now, your mind is going to try to generate new stories, and then you can still observe it and say, oh, okay, throw that one in, throw that one in, throw that in. Eventually it gets weaker and weaker and weaker, so that now you've actually cleared the space where you can actually now start going into the observer state and say, okay, what am I looking at here? What is my thing that I need to address? And that's really, I'm just giving you some of these tidbits because right now, people are going through some pretty powerful activations. This will lead into the other parts that I wanted to cover this evening because it is quite important and active at this point in time. But if you had any questions or anything you wanted to add at any point, please go for it.
I think you're on the great path. And I did send you a couple of questions, so you know the questions, and I would be happy for you to go with it where you want to go with it right now.
Okay. So anyways, this is part of the question that will lead into it regarding to what's going on here. The month of June and July, yes. Get myself straight. The month of June and July was the 2 months. Okay, let me give you an update. There's been a few things that have occurred just recently. So the end of May, we had some of the heavy-duty links and which people call elites and so forth, but we're talking the high level. A lot of them were aliens or in bodies that were from an alien origin, and a lot of them were hybrids and so forth. That were the ones that are not in the media that hardly anybody knows. They're the ones behind the scenes type of thing, right? And they were the ones giving the instructions to all the other playmates below, all the other, some people call it puppets, but they're just the followers of the instructions and so forth. And some are, becoming uncovered, but they're still at just a higher level of the so-called puppets. But just to let you know, the end of May, the last few days of May, that was unplugged. So in essence, the high top elites are no longer in the operating system. They don't actually have access and give more new instructions to all the layers below. So that was planned so that is not being reinforced. So that created an opening. And what does that opening look like? That opening allows that all the ones that are below, it's like this. And you've seen this before in different experiences. When we are experiencing someone that is a dictator, for example, if the dictator is there and giving, being the one dictating and giving orders and putting a lot of pressure on people and so forth to follow the rules, and with threats of some sort, then all the ones that are below are following the rules, okay? And they're afraid not to follow the rules because of potential repercussion, okay? And the fact that they have that much power, or at least seemingly power, because nobody has more power than anybody else, but it's an illusionary power. Because they control certain parts of it, they make it look like they have the power, which, as long as we believe there's power, they have power, right? Mm-hmm. So all the people below are following what the top part, like if you look at the pyramid, the very top capstone is dictating to all the different layers and layers until you get to the bottom, which is just everybody else on the planet that are just following the rules and so forth. Now, the capstone was removed.
Yay.
So that part of the dictatorship is gone. And that was removed just a few months, it's what, a couple of months ago, a month and a half. So it was the end of May, right at the end of May. So that was removed. So now it's just all the ones below that are still following the instructions. But what happens is they're going to notice that there's no new information coming in, no more further pulses of energy, of threat and to comply type of things coming down. So what it does is starts to relieve the intensity that was there. And it starts to create openings of questioning. For example, that's starting to notice a little bit more now, because even the ones that were following the rules, they start to have little glimpse of, why am I following this rules? And I'm almost not seeing or feeling anybody breathing down my neck. Maybe I can just open things up a little bit. Maybe I can be a little bit more lenient. Maybe I can start questioning something, right? So that starts a whole ripple effect. So that occurred at the end of May. Yeah. Then we stepped into the month of June and July, which the month of June and July is the 2 months that were designed specifically for exchanging going on. Okay, what does that mean? Souls that want to leave are preparing to leave, or at least get to the stage of leaving at some point down the road. So they've actually are saying, okay, I'm going to leave the planet. Now, the leaving means not always checking out. This is why I want to make this clear. Like, I haven't shared any of this stuff with anybody, really. So you're getting it on this show.
Yeah.
So in essence, what that means is that the souls that are no longer wanting to either go into third dimension or fifth dimension, because those are really the two options that are available later this year, is the only two options you have, okay? You don't have an option for 2D, you don't have an option for 3D, inverted 3D, and pretty well 4D won't even have a home for it, basically. So it's basically 2, 3, or 5, right?
Wow.
So in essence, the souls that do not want to go into 3 or 5, either if it's more conducive, and depending on the state of the physicality, to leave the physicality altogether, that means it unplugs the human entity, unplugs the soul, and the physicality drops out, then it has that option to do so. So that's where you see people dying, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there could be bodies and human entities that are perfectly fine, and the soul says, I'm done with this, I'm not really interested. That soul can leave, another soul can drop in that is primed to either go into 3 or 5. Okay, so there'll be, now sometimes there'll be one that will come in temporarily than others. So you will notice some people will start to seem a little bit different. And that's kind of what's happening in June and July. We had some big pulses on the 21st of June. We have another one on the 21st of July coming in that actually creates another level of stimulation. Now, back on around the 12th and 13th of July, we had 30% of the matrix turned off, disabled.
Wow.
Okay, so that means only 70% is active. The other 30% was turned off to give more play, more room for people to start navigating using their own operating system and to be able to start connecting to the natural matrix. Okay, so that was only a few days ago. Because what is today? What, 15, 16 or something? So it was like, what, 3 days ago? 3, 4 days ago?
I'm blown away. Oh my God. That's so exciting.
So the intent is by the end of the year, the inverted matrix will be removed. So that's still on track with that. Now, the other thing that comes up, which is basically the end of August going into the middle of July, middle of September, which is where the solidification and the absolute separational component of 3D and 5D will take place. So in essence, the latest that's come out, and again, things have a tendency to change, and it has just recently changed, and I'm saying really recent. That was less than a week ago, that another option was plugged in to make it the transition easier, because one of the things that was an issue that people were concerned of is like, okay, if I go to 5D, what happens to the 3D? I don't see my family anymore. I don't see these people anymore. Or what happens to all of that, right? So there was a lot of concern around that, and it could cause a bit of effect. So in essence, what happens now, the plan is, and I'm going to say this as the plan, because it can alter by the time we get closer to that point in time, is that besides the swapping that's going on of souls and reorganizing and whatever choices are going to take places, that the souls that are going to go into 3D basically will not lose their 5D people. They will see a version of their 5D people that is closely related to their 3D people for a period of time. And that period of time may be whatever it's going to be at this point in time. Could be a year, it could be less than that. But they will also seem very different to the individuals that are in 3D, and vice versa for the 5D. So the 5D people will not see that their 3D people just disappeared like it was originally planned, that they will see them, they'll still be there, but they'll notice they're going to be different because you're also looking at an alternate version that is a little bit more aligned in the 5D. Not that they're going to be in 5D, they'll still be in 3D, but you're seeing a version of it that relates more to 5D, for example. And that will fade too. So eventually they won't be in the scene, or the fact that the ones that go into 3D will move with the 5D, and then some other new ones in 3D. So in essence, there's going to be continuously exchanging happening in 3D, and the same thing in 5D, in the sense where some of the 3Ds will become part of the 5Ds later on, but maybe we're not with the same soul. It might be a different soul dropping in, but all of a sudden that family member becomes a more a 5D related. Now, the other thing is we have to understand, and it's really important, is that just because you entered into 5D state of playground doesn't mean you're 5D. you're working towards that. Okay. Because in essence, you still will have stuff that you're doing. Now, the thing is, it's going to be a lot easier in a way because you're only dealing with the same energies. You're now connected to the 5D frequency of the Gaia, the planet. You're also the 5D versions of others that are wanting to go in that direction. So it's not like a pull. Right now, there's a pull. There's a pull to stay in 2D, the inverted 3D, 3D, and 4D, and 5D. So there's a lot of, you're in a, it's like this, you have 4 or 5 channels on at the same time and you're hearing the noise of everything, so it's like your TV now split up in a whole bunch of little screens, right? Where in that case, you're going to have only one screen and it's your 5D screen, but everybody's trying to get into, be able to see that 5D screen or experience their 5D essence of themselves on there. So you're not distracted by all of that other stuff. Now, there will be some distractions, what looks like distractions, only to trigger certain programs for you to do some more of the purging that you haven't finished along the way. Now, there are going to be people that are going into 5D because the soul decides to be in 5D, but they still have a ton of 3D crap to take care of. And I don't say crap because I mean it as crap. A 3D way of programming that they need to deal with. So, it may seem odd. It's like, oh, how come this person got onto the bus here, in essence. Well, because in essence, they were already striving for that, but they stayed in the 3D part or the inverted 3D for that period of time to help others or to kind of be more in the depth of the trenches of having that experience, right? So that's kind of some of the things that will play out. It's not like, okay, you got the 2 worlds, which you will, and it already exists, by the way, the 2 worlds. We're just visiting off and on because we have parallel aspects of ourselves that are visiting one side to the other. But if you notice, you can go into 5D for a few seconds. You can go into 3D, the true natural, what we call organic, or somebody calls it organic. I think it was Belinda too. The organic 3D. And then you have the inverted 3D, which is not organic in any way, shape, or form. Is like GMO type 3D, but it's all reversed. I'm just using play of words here. And then the 2D, which is basically not connected at all with any aspects of themselves except for being in a physical form. And at the same time, the souls, the relationship with the souls and the individualized souls differ by the different dimensional. Like a 2D basically would not have an individualized soul. It's a collective soul that operates a whole bunch of bodies, for example. I think it's Doreen what was that? Not Virtue. No, sorry. Dolores Cannon. Okay. Dolores Cannon. She has also mentioned in one of her things when she was alive and doing that more often was that there was that whole thing about saying that, but there's a lot of people that are just the extras, and you've probably heard the extras in a movie, right? They're still essential in the background, but they don't have an actual active role where they're speaking or they're actually engaging. They're just in the background, right? So a lot of the 2Ds are more of the background part of it, and they may not have an individualized human entity and individualized. So it's more of one that runs a whole bunch of them at the same time because they're not that active of a role that they need that much attention and a direct focus on. Now, that doesn't mean that's always the case because there are certain physicalities that do embody a soul for a temporary period of time to kind of get a taste of that. So there's a lot of movement around that. And I don't want to confuse people. I've already said a lot here, but, just whatever relates with you, what feels comfortable for you, accept. But it is, and I'm giving you a deeper taste of it, but there's even more to it, but I don't want to overload anybody on that aspect of it. So let's take the first question with Belinda here. I'm going to put my glasses on so I could actually see the writing.
Please, I just have to say, please overload us, Belinda says. Good one. I agree.
Well, make arrangements. See, like I can see people dropping off and going, oh man, I can't handle this. I'm out of here.
Not everybody can handle it. It's true. But
exactly.
Yeah.
So in essence, So when we're talking about graduating into organic 3D or Gaia 5D this fall and then so forth, and inverted metrics gone by 2020, I did cover all of that in my conversations. So in regards to understanding how it is, what else is there? I could clarify a bit more information on what to expect as we transition. I think we covered that pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so even about people having a rough time through various experiences in their life, and those are just kind of really setting the stage in bringing up stuff for them, or the fact of giving them a last bit of taste of that state of being, so that you come to the point of saying, this does not even resonate with me anymore. It doesn't even feel comfortable anymore. Not judgmentally uncomfortable, because there's judgmentally uncomfortable, which is basically labeled as right, wrong, good, or bad, or the sense that this does not resonate or doesn't feel harmonious to the frequency that you're in, okay, or the state of consciousness that you're in. Look at it this way, and this applies to a lot of people at this point in time, but even in your own particular experience, Claudia,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that certain things that you were easily to engage with and have fun with or enjoy or feel that whatever it was, that, as your consciousness continued to expand, as you started to see the world much more differently in your reality, a lot of things that were interesting become less interesting and not interesting at all in some cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the same thing. So in essence, when we're looking at stuff coming up, it's not so much I need to, I dread this or I'm uncomfortable with this. You're basically looking at it and say, okay, this does not match who I am now and who I've become because of the changes that have occurred. So that is different than, having a rejection and feeling that in some way this is so horrible, I need to get out of there. I can't tolerate this anymore. So it's not labeled as good, bad, like I said. It's more of, I'm done with this part of the experience. That's all.
Okay.
All right.
I do feel like you answered the question when you were talking about it anyway, which was fascinating. Organic 3D. I like that. So can I just ask a clarifier?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So you say that there's going to be, there already exists these two Earths, mm-hmm. and there's going to be, by the end of this year, it's going into 2020, we're going to be either in the 5D or the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said something about there being almost like, and I wrote down like a reflection of us. If we go into the 5D, there's still going to be like a reflection, another us in the 3D with our old 3D friends.
Yes, you won't be focusing, you won't be into that one there, but in the sense too is that the people that are into 3D will have a reflection into the 5D also. So in fact, that you don't end up losing your family instantaneously or anything of that nature, like all of a sudden it disappeared. Because it was funny when it was introduced last year and I wasn't allowed to talk about it at the time. When I say not allowed, it was just because it was shared by the beings I was working with, but at the same time, humanity wasn't ready for it. And then they were still in the refining mode. So in essence, it gave me a glimpse, and it used something very humorous about it, because somebody that's has followed any form of religion, or have followed something of that nature, have heard of this thing called the rapture. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, some deity returns and pulls away all the good people and leave all the bad people on the planet, and then it's the rapture. So okay, all the good people are gone because now all hell's going to break loose on the planet Earth or something like that. That's how it's been portrayed all these years. So as a rapture. Yeah. So my alien friends at that point in time made they're not always that humorous. They're somewhat serious in a way, but in a playful, serious way. But in essence, they to me, it made me smile, because when they said it, they said, okay, this is what it will look like for the way. And they don't speak, of course, it's all telepathic, they don't use words when they're communicating, but I can hear them in my head, right? So they had said, okay, all the people that are going to be in 3D, and all of a sudden they see all the 5D people disappearing. Oh, and all those crazies are gone now. you know, all the ones that believed in all those craziness, they finally all gone, right? And the people in the 5D will look at it and see all the 3Ds are gone, for example, and then they would think a rapture happened, and then all the 3Ds are gone, you know, because they got pulled away. So it sounded, you know, if you understand that analogy of how it's been, you know, portrayed, it seemed humorous, because I had heard of it over my years, because coming through a religious family, and also there's been other conversations of that's been very public in different forms, that talking about, you know, the return of, you know, of different deities, and also the rapture of removing all the good people and just leaving the bad people to suffer and whatever it is and all that stuff. So I was surprised that they actually used that analogy or that story when they told me originally back the end of last year, or close to the end of last year. So in essence, it was like, oh, that's interesting how they used it. But I found it humorous, and of course I couldn't share it really publicly yet, so I only said it to, you know, Kimberly and less than a handful of people at that point in time. So in essence, but they found a different way to do this at this point in time. So that's kind of the latest at this point. So by the time we step into 2020, we're basically, we've staged ourselves to be in a completely different reality in a way, and our way of creating and experiencing things will be quite different. Will we still be working through our stuff? Yes. It just be a little bit more supportive, and it won't have to be so polarized as it was before. But that's the plan at this point in time. The other plan that was brought up was that the 3D world would only be able to be supported for 15 years. So by 2035, the 3D world will no longer exist. So everybody will have to upgrade to 5D sort of thing, you know. So in essence, because they want to make that obsolete. It's like it's not a requirement anymore. It's like, okay, everybody has to get to a certain level right now, because we don't need another 3D world to still stay around. But now it's being allowed. And the reason all of this, and even the delay, see, a lot of people were a little concerned about all the delays and stuff that was going on. The reason all of this stuff has been in place, and the delays, was that there was quite an outcry, if you want to call it that. I use those words loosely. Quite an outcry that it wasn't fair to have a cutoff where there's a lot of souls that still weren't done with the 3D, because they were either, you know, dabbling in 2D and been stuck in patterns of inverted 3D, that they didn't really get a chance to experience 3D. So to be all of a sudden pushed all into 5D or out, there was because the percentage of ones that wanted to experience 3D is way higher, quite a bit higher than the 5D, that an allowance had to be made. And that's where the adjustment took place. And there was a delay, because a lot of the stuff that was supposed to happen at the end of 2012 going into 2013, basically in 2013, didn't start happening until the end of 2017. So the stuff that was supposed to be further ahead, and changes were supposed to be quite different by then, was delayed. So anyways, 2018 ended up being, you know, a crucial time. And then now 2019 is an action year. You know, we're still going through our stuff, accelerating even the Schumann frequency of the planet itself has been, you know, going in the 100s plus. Now it's been going beyond that, but just short bursts, just to kind of trigger things, which is even higher than they actually anticipated, even when they were planning to do that originally, when the information was shared in 2012, the beginning of 2012, and even at 2011. So in essence, at that time, they were staging it much lighter, but then they found to stimulate things even further, they were increasing the bursts even much more. If you notice the sun is not as yellow as it used to be. It's brighter now. This is one of the reasons the chemtrails have been more active, not only to kind of increase the toxicity levels on the planet, but also to shield the sunlight, because we being exposed to those frequencies in the sun actually activates or stimulates further or quicker changing from carbon-based to more crystalline base, and then our body starts to become more crystalline, which holds higher frequencies, higher levels of information and so forth, that it becomes more adaptable to those energies. But it also actually causes us to be more connected and aware. So it stimulates the activity of acknowledgement and being present with our playground of who we truly are while in the playground. So in essence, with the banner of, climate change and all of that stuff, they started doing all this, playing around with the climate with the chemtrails. So a lot of the chemtrails, as you notice, create these fake clouds, or what we call these artificial clouds. And, we live in the northern part. You probably experienced it in your part of the world too. It was pretty active, pretty bad for a period of time. I remember here, there was days, weeks that you would never see the sun because it was always overcast, always cloudy. And you looked in the sky, there weren't natural clouds, because natural clouds are very different than the clouds that are created by chemtrails, right? And of course, using the different harps and so forth. So that was kind of the thing, is just to kind of not have us exposed. And I'm not saying that the evil ones and whatever else, that was their intent, to keep you in that inverted 3D, and now they're able to move forward to eliminate or to reduce the amount of sun exposure. And when I say sun exposure, I'm not even talking about tanning, because the tanning affects too. And you'll notice if you go tanning now or go out in the sun, you actually tan a little quicker, because what's happening, the body's training how to use that radiation that's coming from the sun to actually create more health in the body, but also to stimulate the body's change. Now, some people have been noticing also, and I think somebody had asked that question, I think we're talking about it, and let's talk about you tomorrow night, if I'm correct. I remember Kimberly mentioning, some people also see their skin is glittering in certain states, because depending on how much light is deflecting or how much light is actually picking up by the body. Because that's, again, it has to do with a lot of the rays and the energies coming from the sun. Now, we're also affected by the galactic central sun, which has been in effect for a while. But that's also streaming in a way where it's actually increasing in its intensities. Let's call it that. But all of that is all aligned. All of that is just in purpose to help us to move from the 2D, inverted 3D to 3D and 5D. So it's really to stimulate growth within ourselves, more of a connection. 2019 is also the main theme, and the main theme has been for a few years now, but the main theme actually is being emphasized, which is oneness, realization that we're all one. And when I say we're all one, we see that we're not just here for us, we are here with other aspects of us too. So it's like, how people say we got to look after ourselves, okay? And or not even so much, I don't like that, but we are the key to change, working on ourselves. But as we work on ourselves, we're working on other versions of ourselves, and we have to take that. And that's one of the things that we're going into 5D, is that oneness consciousness, where you see that we are to collaborate, because that's our natural state, to collaborate, to cooperate, to work in communities and in groups, and that in that state, we're actually much more effective in making the changes and moving forward in a more efficient way. And if you look at the world, I mean, there's so much we can talk about, but I will stick to the questions, and then we'll go back and play with the rest of it. But, if we look at the world at this point in time, when we come together, when we're working together with some form of commonality, with the same common results, and it's not like I just want something and I don't care about the rest, it's more of a common results where we're looking at and saying, okay, we're coming together to create a beautiful environment for all of us together as a group. You find that more solutions, more powerful ways of seeing things and experiencing things come to the surface. And we are able to be much more creative and imaginative in ways to do things at this point. So these are all part and parcel of what's taking place here at this point in time. Okay, unless you had something else to say, I'll look at what other questions we have here before I play with the other ones.
Yes, please do. I'm having to move my computer because of my plug problem. I don't know.
Okay,
So,
you go ahead. I'm still here.
okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, keep
One of
going.
the other questions that came up was, okay, some have been writing about the experiences of what they, oops, I'm hearing something in background here. They can only describe as a soul merging, which is happening within themselves. While holding the full awareness, it appears to be involved being in a quiet mode, although not total hermit. So in essence, and then there was a post that was shared around that. So what's happening with that? You know, the merging of the souls. The merging, really what's happening is that our experience, our physicality, our overall consciousness, our human entity, our physicality, all those are all different consciousness that are to work together. So in essence, the soul has been more in the driver's seat for a while, but at the same time, all the other parts. So it's the merging is really bringing all of it together, so it works as a team. Okay, so your body works with your soul, your human entity works with your soul. Of course, your soul works with the overall consciousness. And then, of course, the soul will start to override more and more of what you call the human entity, or not the human entity, the ego, and the artificial intelligence, and so forth. So the merging of that. Now, some people find it that it's easier for them to go through that process where they're actually taking time to go quiet. And what happens with going quiet, going in a state where you're able to connect with yourself without all the dialogue and the busyness and the distractions, the process is a lot more efficient, and you can actually be part of it, and you can observe, because now you can bring that part of that higher consciousness into the other facets of yourself. So you're able to kind of experience yourself more holistic by creating that merging. Now, the other thing that happens with the merging with your soul, you're accessing higher consciousness, and you're also allowing yourself to modify and upgrade the different facets of yourself. For example, you help upgrade the physicality and how it has its relationship with the soul and the relationship with Gaia, okay? In the sense of that it is more aligned in the purpose of moving and advancing forward. So you can see how all of that works in that regards. The other part of the merging also allows you to be able to be more grounded with yourself, grounded with the source essence of yourself, rather than grounding yourself with other facets of, you know, say Gaia, for example, because the Gaia connection, the Gaia grounding serves one purpose, but the grounding of yourself is much more powerful because of the fact that you are now more closely on purpose, and you're also working on yourself more clearly. So no matter what's happening around you, you're always much more grounded and centered within that source essence that you are. So that's what the merging is about. So the merging is really allowing yourself to be immersed with the energies and the consciousness and the accessibility that your higher self soul is bringing forth into your experience. It also dissolves a lot of the separations, because right now we have, you know, separations with one another, but a lot of people don't realize that many of us, the majority of us at this point in time, have been experiencing for a very long time separations within us. And what I mean by in separations, we're talking about separations of the body to who we are, the separation of our human entity, the separation of the overall consciousness, the separation of the ego mind. So we haven't been working as one unit. We've been working on fragmented states. And I made that word up, fragmented.
Fragmented, that's a good one.
So in essence, what happens is the body has its own innate consciousness that looks after itself, in the sense of how can I stay vital, fluent, functional on this planet? How can I do this effectively and efficiently without having compromisation in the physical part. So its consciousness is to keep the body intact, to keep it functional. Now, of course, it's also learning from the experience of the physicality, what's exposed to, what energies is around, what it does and doesn't do, and so forth, and the interactions with others and so forth. So you have that. Then you have the human entity that's got its own list of things that it wants to do, and it has its own fragmented consciousness and fragmented journey. And of course, the soul comes in with a grander purpose of, you know, what it's here to do. And then the overall consciousness is the overall consciousness that's basically operating by programs too, in a way. And then you've got the ego mind, which is totally program based and totally inverted 3D or 2D. Because that's where the ego works. It's inverted 3D and 3D and 2D. It doesn't work in true, or what you call organic 3D and organic 5D. Because it basically, it's programmed to bring you into the inverted 3D, which is the inverted matrix, or the 2D, which is part of the inverted matrix. So those fragments are dissolving for a lot of us, and a lot more merging is taking place. So the unification of mind, body, soul, human entity is coming together, so it works more harmoniously. Because when they are working in alignment, it's actually much more effective, because every part of your experience is working together, and it's sharing the information that it's getting with each aspects of itself. So it's actually becoming very empowering, so that you could actually move through experiences a lot more efficiently than, you know, having certain parts of you kind of digging in and holding back to some older state of experience, for example. Because if you go into an emotional state, okay, and it's felt throughout the whole body, and you're going into some really fear state or intense state, then what happens is your body goes into automatic response, fight and flight sort of thing, even if it's not its natural state, but it is in a way programmed that way because of, you know, the inverted programming and the exposure to it. Goes into fight and flight, and then it actually starts to shut down or tries to go into a panic state, then missing out the whole opportunity of what really has been staged, what has been created, what is there for me to learn from is not available to access that, because that part of it is going into fight and flight, or going into panic mode, or going into self-survival mode. You know, so that's why you have that. And then, of course, the soul is wanting to push this way. The human entity saying, well, we haven't finished with this part. The body's going, oh, man, I'm all messed up here. And then the overall consciousness is, what am I supposed to do with all this? Because you take the overall consciousness, it's taking input from all sources. It's taking inputs from the physicality. It's taking input from your human entity, from your soul, but it's also taking input from your third eye, which is connecting to other souls, on planet, off planet, in form and out of form. You know, it's taking out a lot of different inputs, and it's taking all of that, and it's going all into the right brain. It's processing all of that, and then streaming it into the left lane. And then, of course, the left brain doesn't actually take everything just purely clear, because then it goes into the left brain. Then it has to contend with the human ego, or the ego entity, artificial intelligence, which is the ego mind, which clouds it and even more. So this is kind of the picnic that we've been experiencing, the playground that we've been playing in. It's in all of that right now, of all the levels that is playing out. So, saying all of that, I think I've over excited everybody about all of that stuff. So anyways, that's what the merging is all about. Probably a lot more details than what the question really asked, but you got that. And
that was good. That was great. I didn't even really understand the question, so it was a little over my head.
It's really about, you know, describing how the soul merges with what's happening with themselves. So in essence, it's how it's engaging with other aspects of yourself, your body, and so forth. So I described a little bit more of that. Now, there's our processes where we're going through clearing. Yeah, well, part of it is clearing, but part of it is the experiences that we're having within ourselves, and then the soul merging in it, being directly involved, and be able to understand what do you call it? Oh, just lost the words I was going to use.
Programs?
Yeah, that's not quite the word. But anyways, let me rephrase it until that word comes back, or it doesn't come back. That's okay.
Okay.
So in essence, it's involved because the soul becomes more involved with the stuff that's going on with you and bring you a lot higher clarity about it. So when it merges in that, it actually dives in. It's almost like being part of whatever you're experiencing it. So it becomes one with it. It's not like a separation where there you got the soul's perspective, you got the human perspective. So the merging actually brings all of it together. Mm-hmm. So now the soul is becoming more experienced of what it has to deal with and work with, and also learns from it. The human entity learns from it more. The body learns from it more. The overall consciousness learns more from it. So that's kind of what really happens in that regards, without getting into more details. But, you know, that's pretty well, that gives you everything that you need at this point to understand it.
It sounds good. It sounds like we're talking about becoming more fully embodied, mm-hmm. you know, and the soul's really coming in and, you know, through our higher consciousness.
Oh, we lost you there.
Oh,
there you are. You're back.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, sorry. I just was, it sounds like we're right on track. It sounds like everything is moving along as it's supposed to.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, you know, even like the question I get from a lot of people is like, I see a lot of chaos. I don't see really much change happening because, again, they have an expectation that the changes have to be a certain way. And, you know, every change that goes on and everything that's going on, it really has to look at really where we're at, what is going to be highly beneficial at any point in time. And, you know, there is a procedure, because it's not like overriding everything. It's about, you know, if we have this thing going on within ourselves, how can we do it effectively and move through it and learn along the way and become more experientially rich while we're doing it, right? So it's not, you know, a lot of people say, well, the changes are not happening, but the changes are happening, you know, and the thing is, the question always comes up is, you know, I'm not feeling it in the same intensity, you know, I'm not seeing that, you know, people are different or anything like that. But if you actually pay attention, a lot is different. But let me explain one thing here, and this is another mind twist here, okay? When you, like, okay, there's changes going on that we don't always see. Let that sink in for a second. There's changes going on that we don't always see. Why? The question is. Well, if your focus is in a certain way of looking at things, and your state of consciousness and your frequency is at a certain state, say, for example, you have a lot of fear and you're waiting for things to change, the changes are happening, but you're not seeing the changes because you're still holding on to the old version of what the reality looks like. There are multiple versions of our reality, multiple versions of different playmates. This is a lot to take in. So there's multiple versions that are taking place of each individual there, but all of them are catered. That's why we call it co-creation, because in essence there's, like, for example, you can be on a street looking at an event. Your state of consciousness, your way of seeing it, your vibration will see certain things happening. Somebody coming in a more fearful state or more, you know, believing that things are not changing, and they have that deeply in their consciousness, and they're basically seeing that, or feeling that only horrible things are happening, they're going to see that same scenery very different. And it's not only the interpretation. The scene, it's like two films running, and one is seeing one film more than the other film. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and I'm reading a question that is being asked right now by Teal, that relative question. So are all those versions merging now as well?
They will, as long as they're not required. So those versions, like for a particular individual, yes, because those versions will not be required to have, for example, if somebody's at a state and they're not fluctuating anymore, all those other versions of it actually just kind of blend into the other version and you're not going to even see it. But the other versions, for people that still use the other versions, they're still, seeing those other versions of the same individuals, the same scenery, and so forth. It's the same way, like some people can see energies, some people can see certain things taking place or whatever it is, and others can't. It's just because of the state that they're in and how open they are to see certain things. If you have a strong belief that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you will see that version. And when I say you're seeing that version is playing out. And many people are seeing that version, but everybody that relates with that or still believes that very strongly and are still in that operating system will see that. Someone else will look around and say, well, yeah, I barely see any chaos going on. And if it's there, I don't even see it, feel it, experience it in any way, but they see all this beauty around them. They see the nature. They see people loving each other. There's people sharing, children playing. They see versions that are more related to their state. So they're seeing that version of the movie. It's almost like the Mandela effect, if you've heard of that. Okay, why does the Mandela effect even exist? Was explained because, in essence, as we change, we're seeing another version of that creation. So, like even the name of a product, for example, or a label, or what we call a branding of a product, will start to look different as people their overall energy shifts. Now, some people will still see the one version, the other people will see the other version, which the other version matches more with that. And that kind of happens with people, with situations, even where the environment that you're in. Okay. Now, sometimes some versions are so overlaid on one frequency that you may not even feel entertained or feel interested in going into that area. You'll go into an area that has multiple versions that are more closely related to you personally, for example. So I'm not here to complicate things. It's just, you guys listen to it again at some point, and just let it be. Because what happens, it starts to materialize and you start to notice it. You start to become the observer of that. Oh, wow, I'm seeing it. And then what we shared here tonight will become clear for you, because now it answers a bunch of questions that you didn't ask yet. Because you start to notice things and you didn't even have you're not at the place to ask the question yet, but now the answer had been applied before you asked the question. And when you ask the question, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, I'm looking at a version. Because listen, we've all experienced this. Take a family member, for example, okay? The version of, say for example, your dad, okay? Mm-hmm. The version of your dad that you see is different than the version of your dad that your sister may see, or anybody else in your family. Maybe not hugely different, but different enough that they notice certain parts of it and not others. You may see a certain kindness, a sharing, a loving, or this particular characteristics and so forth. Now your sister may see something different. Maybe another family member will see something different. Because in essence, yeah, they have their own filters and so forth, but really they're actually tuning into that version of your dad. Now, if your dad was violent in one way, which I'm not saying he is, because I'm just giving you as an example, just an example, you don't see that version, because that version is not in alignment with you. You don't need that part of your experience. You're not in requirement of that version. Where somebody else, like another sibling or another person, may see that side of your father, for example. I'm just giving you an example. May see that part because he's able to play that role. Now, so sometimes you've seen it when somebody goes, well, this person is so loving, caring, and you go, what are you talking about? Or vice versa, right? Because they're seeing another version of that same individual, because we have multiple versions. Now, what happens is, as you become more yourself, okay? And you're not even creating facades of yourself or versions of yourself, and you become yourself 100%, and you do not become another version of yourself in different scenarios. Like, for example, you go to work and you're in one scenario, you go to friends, you're another scenario, you go to the family, you're another version of you, and so forth. And then you're actively playing out those roles. Then there's a merging that goes on with that, so that all those versions no longer exist, and it becomes that one version, which is your true self, which is your true essence. It's the one frequency that you keep consistent. You know, when people say be yourself, that's what it means, being yourself no matter where you are, that one version, without coming out and fragmenting yourself in various versions. Because a lot of people do that. We're all guilty of it. Okay, we put on a different hat. That's how they use it in terminologies these days sometimes. You know, I'm going to go and now I'm going to be the boss hat. Now I'm going to go home, I'm going to be dad's hat. Now I'm going to put on the hat of being the husband or wife. I'm going to put on the hat that I'm going to be, you know, the son or daughter of this, you know, family unit, or I'm going to be the aunt or uncle of this family unit, right? So, but what I'm saying, you play the role, whatever the role is, but the role is not different. You're still being genuinely 100% yourself, the most authentic, most upgraded version of you. Because this is the other thing, and I'm going to bring this a little further. If you pay attention, some of these versions that you are is an old version of you. For example, you go to your family gathering, and guess what comes out? It's the version of you that people know that may have been shy, or may have been one way or another, or may have been, you know, outgoing, or may have been judgmental, or whatever it is. So you go there, or the fact that you accept things that really don't resonate with you, and all of a sudden you become that part. So what you're doing is you're changing that version of you. You're actually changing roles and the version of you. So that's what they see, and you become that version. When you're saying be genuinely yourself everywhere you're going, no matter, let's back up for a second. So that is an old version of you. Now, you've probably experienced it yourself, and many of us have experienced. If a certain trigger comes up and it reminds you as a child, you can go back to that child version of you. And I'm not talking physically, but the way you act, the way you respond, the way you feel. For example, if you get terrified and you used to react a certain way as a child, you will play out that role of you, that version of you. Even though you're in an adult body, you will have that particular experience. So you're going back to an older version of you. So it's not the most current version of you using the highest level of consciousness. You're looking at an older version. So when you're becoming more your authentic self, you're who you are, you're now updating yourself to the most current state that you're in all applications, in all environments, in all playgrounds, with all playmates. Then you're not bringing back any of the old versions. And the beauty is, the most current part of you is the most active, most powerful, and it is the most observant version of you, because that one can see the old version and be able to clear that very easily. Because the one thing you have to keep in mind is that it's no longer important for you to keep that old version. How many times have we, and we can all relate with this, you are going through a process of changing your way of life, the direction of your life, okay? But then you go back to your family and you know you have this default program, they're not going to understand me, they're not accepting me, and so forth. So what you do is you activate the old version of you when you go there, because you want to be accepted, because you want to be part of them, because in some way that's the only way they're going to be able to see you or understand you, because that's all they know is that version of you. As long as you need that version, you're never out 100% in your genuine self. Because what happens is now you have, say it's only two versions. So you have your genuine self and you have the older version of yourself. So when you go into family, you're going to older version. But both of them are active. So in essence, bleed through will happen where you're going to be able to have triggers that are related to what you would only experience in the old version. In the new version, it wouldn't even be applicable. But because there's that bleed over, you're going to end up experiencing it.
Wow.
How about that for a twister?
I don't know. I don't even know. This is so major. It's like, I don't even know. I'm sorry. I'm a little blown away. I can't.
Okay. Well, give everybody a break to breathe for a second.
Wow. So.
Didn't you tell me that you wanted to blow everybody's minds? No, you didn't. I did.
I'm all for it. This is the best stuff.
And I'm not here just to blow people's mind. I'm just trying to stretch it as much as possible to give really a more expanded viewpoint so that we actually see all of these things I'm sharing is helping people to kind of navigate through all these really intense energies that are coming through, the changes that are happening, the acceleration that's going on and so forth, to be able to become more that authentic aspect of themselves. So in essence, these are all valuable because in essence, you can start using a lot of this stuff and say, oh, I can see myself here being this way and that way. Now, the other thing, one last thing about that part is that sometimes we have this belief that if I am being my authentic self, that people will reject me or my family will already don't understand me. They will really not understand me. Okay. Or the fact that they won't even want me around, or I'm going to lose the family, or the family are going to push me out. Okay. So in essence, that's just a program that comes in from the inverted matrix to keep you to hold on to that. Because in essence, if you're being your genuine self, even in the dynamics where they feel that they can understand you, they will still be affected by it and actually create some form of opening that may not be responsive right away. And there may be a shutting down sort of thing where they actually can't understand it, like gloss over. Their eyes are glossing over. It's like, I don't know what just happened, or what this person is all. And then probably a few of you are glossing over with everything I'm saying anyways. But that's why it's good to repeat this over and over again. But anyways, my point to that is that when you're entering that family dynamic in your genuine self, you actually are a catalyst of change there, without any expectations, of course. You go in and you're being your genuine self. What happens is that first is a resistance, because egos love to resist. Oh, what the hell is that all about? It's like, no way. What do you mean? At first. But it stimulates the people's soul. It stimulates their human entity. It stimulates their overall consciousness. It's like, that's interesting, and it starts to question in a sense of, I'm not being all myself either. I'm playing a role too. Maybe I should start looking at some of this and start looking into how I start making changes. Even if it doesn't happen right away that way, you already planted the seed. So that's the thing. So in essence, you don't want to be a different version of you. And I've had to do that myself, because over the years, especially a long time ago, I had a softer version of me with my family. And when I say softer version, I didn't adopt their stuff and how they saw things, but I was not being 100% emanating of what I was. Not that I'm teaching, preaching, or anything, because I don't, never do. But in essence, to be in that state. And then I realized that it wasn't expediting anything. So then I decided, okay, I'm just going to be me all the time, whatever. And it doesn't matter. They're already rejecting me as it is from their viewpoint. So they go to another level of rejection. That's okay. But what happens is that rejection actually starts to break down, and they start to accept you, that you are this difference. And then in fact, they actually at times find it refreshing that you're going there as that energy, because it's refreshing, because it's different. And it's like, wow, I don't get it. I don't understand it, but it almost freaking feels good, or it pushes their buttons at times. And that's okay too. So realistically, it's allowing that authentic aspect of you to be wherever you need to be at all times. I think I've expanded that enough for the time being.
Sorry,
do you relate with any of this? Does any make any sense to you?
It's great. You just started to fade out a little bit. I don't know if it's just for me or for everybody. I missed a couple of words.
Oh, okay.
Your last, just like the last sentence, but
I know you keep freezing time to time, so it might be on your end.
I think it's just on my end.
I'm streaming pretty powerfully here. The bar is always saying that I'm streaming good, so I'm hoping that it's it hasn't been fading.
Okay.
So the recording should be good. The recording on Facebook and also the recording that will be on Zoom here that I will be making available if anybody wants it. So I'm going to say. Yeah, no. If what words were you missing? If I need to touch upon that, so that you can tell me if any of this stuff relates, or you can relate with it, or had any similar experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely tuning into what you were saying, and it's just like the mind is also shooting other things to me, like, oh, and what about this, and what about your family, and like I just feel like I'm really tuning into what you're saying about being this like one version of yourself. So I think of that as maybe being our best self, being more aligned with our soul or our higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, that just makes me feel better because I almost feel like I've been doing that in my life, like with having different kind of boundaries with people, like being a little more neutral, not getting so triggered, not allowing myself to be emotionally triggered right away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I have a tough time with my family. My sister.
We lost you. Anyways, I'm getting from messages, everybody, that there was no dropout from my end. So
good.
I can hear you. I can hear them all. He did not fade out. All good for me.
Good.
My end is good. No fading. I hear the following wonderful, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So cool. All good. So it's just, I guess on your end, you keep fading. Sorry. But you were talking about something about you and your sister before you froze. So I'll let you continue there. So that I think a lot of us missed what you said there.
Hope you can hear. I just feel like things are clearing away. Things that used to be huge problems for me are now becoming like an issue of me standing up for myself and saying, this I just will not tolerate. I just don't want to be treated like this anymore. And then it changes. So what was causing me a lot of headache and stress for a long time is finally clearing away. So.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So maybe
I'm
doing that.
It's great. And the thing is, the just to expand on the whole idea of boundaries and so forth, it's not so much about the boundaries as what really is, when we're looking at that, it's not like I don't want to be treated this way. It's like, okay, I'm being treated this way. What is it triggering for me? What is my program around that and so forth? Because once you've cleared that, no one's going to act that way. And even if they did, you wouldn't even notice it at all. Okay? Because boundaries the first start in a sense, but you want to get to a point where it's not even active and there's no boundaries to require, because in essence at that point in time, or the fact that you have to lay out how you want to be treated. Because at that point it says, oh, you can believe what you want. You can act any way you want. You can treat me any way you want. I'm not fazed by it. You don't even have to think that, because in essence you're not, right? But then you'll notice people don't act a certain way anymore around you, because they don't even, you're not requesting it from a superconscious level. You're not allowing even to have that engagement to play. And all of a sudden they change. And I'm sure you've seen it many times, besides the different versions, because that's what happens too, is that you're bringing in other versions. Even without the other versions of you coming into play, is that a role of one another playing with each other is not going to take place unless it's a mutually agreed component in any way or shape, because it's not possible in that garden. You know, the whole idea, which is just an idea, it's a concept, it's a perception, a belief system, and an installed program that, you know, people can take advantage of us, that people can treat us a certain way, and that we have no say in the matter, or the fact that we are, you know, helpless, or anything of that nature. We can play that role, absolutely, 150%, no problem. We're really good at it. We also can play the opposite role, you know. But in essence, a role is a role, and the only reason the role is there is because it's going to serve in one way or another. Because if it doesn't serve, it's not even possible to be there. You're not even going to engage there. It's just the way it is. It's designed that way. But the illusion will carry the inverted the inverted matrix, and the ego mind will tell you otherwise. So the only reason I shared that is to not to contradict what you said, because in essence that's a first start. Then you go, okay, why am I feeling this way about the whole thing? What is my belief? What is my story? What is my issue with all of this? Because in essence, it's there to serve me, and I want to see and understand and be able to shift myself so that I'm actually no longer needing to play with this, or no longer engaged in this, so that I'm actually vibrating more in my natural vibration, which is aligned with 5D.
Well, that's why I'm coming to your retreat.
Yes, we get to play. Exactly. Well, a week and a half away. Yes.
Is that only a week and a half away?
Well, it's not this weekend. It's the following weekend. So yeah.
Oh my God.
We're already in. What are we today? Tuesday. So a little more than a week and a half. Yeah.
Wow.
It's on the 28th, so 12 days away.
That's right. So that's what I was going to say. So it's a good thing I'm doing that, because at this point, I don't know, if people are coming to your own, I'm not going to get into it because we're like getting to the end of the.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost you. Claudia, come on back. Oh, there she's back.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, now I can. Yes.
Okay. So what I was going to say is we've actually come to it's 10 o'clock now. So
oh yes, you're right. It has
been a full 2-hour show.
We did start a little late, so we can go a couple of minutes over just to wrap things up.
Okay.
But wrap it up.
Well, there's another question. I'm not sure if it would go with the wrap up, but because I kind of want to, since your show, your big show, your retreat is coming only a week and a half away, I thought we could maybe we should talk a little bit about really assist people to get to this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we lost you again for a second there. We'll wait for you to come back. There you go. You're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. So you were saying we'll talk about the retreat that's coming up, and yeah, it's good that we're talking about that. I'm just going to bring up my little thing here on that retreat that I want to talk about. I'm going to have to put my glasses back on. Okay. I had it up earlier. Oh, there it is. Ooh, slow down. Things are moving quickly. Well, of course, it doesn't want to come up now.
Oh, no.
I'll get to. I have a back end to all of this.
Okay.
Let's do it from the back end. Anyways, you can share what stimulated you with the feel of going to this retreat, and maybe share a little bit of what you experienced last retreat while I bring up my page here that seems to have disappeared. It's here somewhere.
I'm hoping people won't lose my voice. I feel bad that my connection is not so good. And it has really been an issue of Mercury retrograde for me here. But I have to say, I was at the retreat last summer, and that was a 5-day event. And it was amazing. And I got to be up on stage and get a clearing in front of everyone. And I think I used maybe a box of tissues for that. So I was blowing my nose a lot. I was just a mess. I was a mess. It was really releasing. And still, I had all this stuff to come through this year. So I don't know, maybe I could have done a better job of doing all the processes, but I still need more work. I don't know. So I'm really looking forward to it because there's a part of me that feels like I lose that edge when I'm not with you guys, like when I'm in the real world of regular people.
Yeah, and the thing I remind people all the time is that it's, this is why we provide video and audio recordings of the whole retreat, because in essence, it's very, very beneficial to repeat it as not only a reminder, but also the processes that we do there that stimulates the work that's getting done. So in essence, the reason the retreats is to prepare you for further advancement, and it's also to be able to bring you to the next level. And the thing is, you already have a profound experience while you're there, but the thing is, you're still living life and you're still fine-tuning yourself along the way. You've got the tools, you've gotten already the base set. So utilizing the replays and so forth, or the recordings and so forth, that actually supports you even further. And I found that people that actually are diligent doing that, I found that they've actually used it in a way where it's made profound changes for them, in essence, that anytime anything came up, they had something to go back to kind of say, okay, I can use this to kind of reinforce it, remind me to repeat any part of the processes that will actually reinforce the work done. So that's one thing. The upcoming one, this is going to be the most powerful again, because each one gets even more powerful. And the reason it gets more powerful, because first of all, people are more ready. Second of all, the energies have increased. Third, I have more freedom to go into deeper states of sharing because of the collective advancements. And this one's actually 7 days. It's the longest one I've done in a long, long time, because it's used to be for the longest, for quite a few years now, it's 2.5 days, or 2.25 days, or a third day, I guess, 2.33 days, that we've been doing the retreats. There were shorter ones. Last year we did a 5-day that's the one that you attended also. Mm-hmm. And so we got a little deeper, but we found that the 2 extra days would actually do even more. So this year is a 7-day. Okay, so everything is going up to the next level. But this one here, it's a very extensive 7-day self-discovery retreat, and that tells you right away self-discovery. It's about releasing the 3D illusion. It's about connecting with our true essence, recreating our reality and our life. So that's what the fundamental basis is all about. So the question I ask people at times is like, if you were able, how would your world be if you were now connecting with your highest level of grounding guidance system that you have available, that sees the biggest perspective possible at all times of whatever's playing out? So in fact, that you can dive in and have the deep experience, but at the same time be able to see it from a bigger perspective and move through things very easily, to have a deeper understanding, to actually be able to be actively creating in a conscious way, because that's the thing. We are always creating, but we will be able to create a reality in our life, redesign it, reshape it, realign it in a way that it actually supports who we are and where we're going through. And also the work will be involved in going into a depth where you're actually now fine-tuning your frequencies and your way of navigating that very closely relates to the 5D state of consciousness. And in essence, so that you would be able to be more ready for all of the stuff that's going on, and even the stuff that will continue to unfold. And believe it or not, this is happening at a really good time, because it actually gives you several weeks of preparation work for some of the other bigger changes that are going in. And then you will be able to go into that higher notch of beingness, just because of the fact that you've already have a lot of stuff that has been, programmed and activated within yourself, and you've already addressed quite a few things that would have, impeded some of the, or make it a little bit more colorful or intense, which, we're all experienced of that. So in essence, it's really breaking through the barriers that we've put in to be able to override a lot of the stuff that, no longer serves us anymore with ease. Okay. To not be in a fear state, to be able to be very active in playing. So, we're going to be doing processes that will allow us to connect with who we are, but also to experience ourselves with non-physicality and to be in physicality, so that you have even a deeper appreciation of being in a physicality, to be able to actually use your higher aspects of yourself to better navigate with more ease, not to get caught up in patterns and so forth. We established the connection with all the body components, being the human entity, the mind, the overall consciousness, the body, what we call the body consciousness, but the soul consciousness. So we will be doing a lot of process on that and getting into a deeper understanding. So we've touched upon a lot of things tonight, but we'll go into that: how to utilize the third eye, how to understand how our brain works, how to shift things to be more in alignment, living beyond this physical experience, so that you can actually experience more of your multidimensional aspects of yourself, to be more effective, to let go of the timelines that we've made reconstructed and carried along, including the past, being more present. We'll talk about the different 3D, 5D, how to link with that, and so on and so on. There's so much that we'll be covering over the 7 days. So it's a full experience. And plus you get to have certain activities, you get to be in nature, you get to be with other like-minded people, so that the energy is held up for the full 7 days. So you actually get a little bit more familiar with that type of energy, so that when you come back, you can actually be able to hold more of that in yourself, because you have a reference point. Because we'll be locking in some of those energies. We'll be bringing in some of your home frequency, which is your frequency at a pretty well a soul level at this point in time. So these are some of the things that will be done at the retreat. So the retreat itself is, like I said, the full 7 days. It's a full package. You go there. You don't have to leave the premises. You're fed. You're housed there, if you want to call it. There's accommodations and everything. It's all included in the package. Some people will be camping. A few people like to camp and also experience all the other parts of it too at the same time. But and if you go to the link, which if you're on the Facebook, if you scroll down, you will find it. If not, I'm going to post it afterwards. I'm going to put a little description of it in the post itself. It's you'll have to move rather quickly if you're deciding to come, because the time is running close. So in essence, if you can decide if it feels really in resonance for you, and if you're ready to really alter your life, or actually redesign your life, and to actually go into a different, higher version of yourself, and really shift your reality, then that is one very powerful experience to play with and get involved in, and so forth. I make it very cost effective. It's the big bulk of the cost is the retreat center and the food and accommodations and all that stuff. So in essence, but it's still very reasonable, because anybody that's gone to retreats before, and specifically if they're looking at a 7 day with meals and accommodation and everything is included, you don't even have to do anything for the full 7 days. That's kind of a holiday too. It's very inexpensive, very inexpensive. And then you really have a mind-blowing experience, which actually takes you to another level, and a life-changing experience. That alone itself, is huge. I mean, some people pay thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars going to workshops and retreats that don't even get a fraction of what you experience in these type of retreats. So anyways, it's really designed for you. If you feel called to it, join us. I mean, be part of it. Thank you for that.
Oh, that's so awesome. I feel like my cheeks have been like in a constant smiling position the whole show. I'm not used to seeing myself, but it just means that I'm very happy.
Good.
I'm very joyful.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're all moving towards this the right way, and having this retreat as a possibility for those of us who can attend, I think it's great. And so if people want to check it out, they'll go to francodenicola.com
Mm-hmm.
or go on Facebook. Franco will have a link there, and I can also put a link on my page. I've just decided within the past couple of days that I'm going to be able to go. So I'm really excited that I can attend, but I don't live too far away. For those people who do live kind of far, are you going to have any kind of, it's kind of long for live stream, but is there going to be a way?
No, there's no live streaming for the people that can't come in. We will record video and audio of the whole event so that it will be available probably within a week after the retreat. And that will be made available so people can purchase that, of course, because not everybody can come. The in-person experience is the most powerful, of course, but if you can't do it this year, then definitely go for the recordings. The recordings are you will get everything except for being present there, because we record every part of it, and of course that's why you'll have the video and audio, because you can experience it, almost being live there, but you're not. Yeah. The only thing is, the reason we are not doing a live stream, because in essence, in a retreat setting, we've done it in the past for a 2.5 day, but to do it in a retreat setting, the people that are online, they are more stuck. They're more diligent with the schedules. But as you know, Claudia, you've been to a few of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That we have our breaks, and then to recollect everybody back into the room to get started, you take a 10-minute break and it ends up being 30 minutes by the time everybody's settled in. Yeah. So the people online are waiting and waiting and waiting and so forth. And the streaming also puts a little bit more extra pressure to kind of stay on track for myself and the videographer, or the one that's actually working with us, which is Chetan, that, to always be on the ball and making sure everything is transmitting properly and so forth. So this way, just to have a more relaxed schedule, we just record it and then make it available afterwards.
Yeah, I know it's hard. We all get together, and like Franco was saying, you're around all these like-minded people, and you feel like you don't even want to leave them. You're like, please, let's just live together forever. I was like, we keep saying the third day, when like 3 days is not enough. Then we did 5 days. 5 days is not enough. We'll see what happens at the 7 day. Yeah. But it's actually 7 day plus. It's almost like 8 days. It's like,
yeah, pretty well, because it's Sunday to Sunday.
Yeah.
So we have, people will arrive on Sunday, the 28th of July. Of course, they're going to settle in their room and so forth. Then we have a dinner together. And after dinner, then we go into the meeting room where we'll be holding the event. And that's when we start. And so we usually do 2.5 hours that evening of process, if not 3 sometimes. But we try to keep it not too much on the first night, because we want people to start getting comfortable and get to bed early. So you get that Sunday, I mean. And then you have the whole week. Of course, every day there's activities, and we have free time for people to connect and so forth, and breaks and whatever else. And in the evenings, campfires and whatever else to bring people together and to share and stuff like that. And then on the Sunday, the following Sunday, we go till about 5 p.m. in the evening. So you're getting full 7 days plus the extra day that you get a few hours more on top of that. So you're pretty well. Really 7 days plus.
It's very reasonable, like beyond reasonable. It's very inexpensive, especially if you're an American, and then, the American dollar goes further than the Canadian dollar. So that's a nice discount. And if
that works out to 30%, that's for sure.
It's huge. And if you're a member of the community, which I am, the It's All About You community, you get a discount as well. Mm-hmm. So it's, you guys are really, you're just basically offering this for the collective. You're not even making, I know that it's like we want you to make enough money so that you can survive and thrive. But we're very happy that you offer this for us so that we can all afford to come.
Mm-hmm.
And you really do it for the good of all of us. So I highly recommend it. It's not just like a great fun time, but it's very transformative. And it's so nice to just be in the presence of Franco and all the people that gather around him. His beautiful partner, Kimberly, is so funny and fun to be with. And all these people are so fun. So we're going to have a great time. And also grow in the process. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that's going to be great. Gosh, this was a really fascinating show. I can't wait to listen to it again and actually pick up on some of the stuff that you were saying in the beginning, because that was really above and beyond. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And it'll be smoother next time because I figured out some of the things now that how to get it on Facebook a little more efficiently. So we should be able to. And then, of course, next time we may not have the technical issues on your end too. So
I hope not.
Not lighting, not the internet fading in and out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will work that out. And, this is a learning curve for me, finally doing videos. I think I did a couple last year, but just starting to get used to it. So thank you for offering the platform for us to have this show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tonight, Franco. It's
We're going
always
to be
a
doing
pleasure.
more. Kimberly and I are planning some more different ones too. I'm also doing the shows with Todd Medina and, Carrie Kay and who knows what else will come up along the way. But, and then others that we will do together too. So there's different ways to get the message out there to assist people with all the fun changes that are going on. So the last thing I can say with people is, we're on track, even though it may not look like always at the same time. And, as much as we want to rush things, it is perfectly orchestrated so that it actually supports all of us while we're going through all the changes at this point in time. And to use the tools, everything that's been shared this evening they're tools. They're actually, stuff that you use to allow you to be able to do this more efficiently. Anything that comes up for you. Is there anything else that we've got messages wise here? The chakra one, I don't think we can address tonight.
No, I agree. Just people loving you. Thank you, Franco and CJ from Belinda. Mm-hmm. She can't make the retreat, but lots of hugs, love, gratitude. Teal is saying, yep, transformation happened for me in 2014 and thereafter. Good for you, CJ. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions other than what was said before. I mean, I think that the thing that was really fascinating was that whole merging of the soul and then the merging of the timelines and the different parts of it. Like, it's so multi-layered. Mm-hmm. And I think that you really covered everything. Sending you the questions ahead of time, you basically were ready to get all into it for the show. So that was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I review the question to make sure we covered it, but we've covered it pretty extensively. So everything. The only other thing I see at the very bottom of that list was to do with the eclipse, how that affects us and so forth. That's a bit of a conversation too, but in essence, it's still beneficial because of the fact of the purpose of the moon and the frequency it transmits, and the eclipse actually creates an opening because it actually blocks the frequency of the moon for a short period of time. So the planet is not facing a certain section of the planet as it's moving along is not facing that. So it usually creates a boost in people's frequency. So at times that can create some unsettledness, but in essence, it's about, how can I say, about really boosting us to another layer or level of experiencing that newness of the individual self.
Perfect.
But we can elaborate at another time a little bit more if we have to address it, since we run out of time.
I know. Well, Yes, it is the eclipse. So I'm glad that everything, it does feel like everything always works out and the timing is always perfect. So thank you again, Franco DeNicola,
Yeah, you're
for
welcome.
speaking with me, and for everybody that came on tonight, that listened to us and tuned in and will tune in the future. It's just been wonderful. And I guess this is kind of your show. So even though, because you have the controls. So
Well, the only reason I have the controls is because I have the service, or else
yeah.
you would have to get the service, and I have the service already because we do other streaming with it. That's the thing, because
Yeah.
we're doing it like we could also do without having Zoom, and just live stream through Facebook. A lot of people do that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be an issue right now because you're new to it. But if you were doing a lot of like, for example, some of the people that are on there regularly and they're
Hmm.
talking about higher consciousness, they get blocked a lot. So in
Oh.
essence, their Facebook won't allow them on. Like even Todd Medina, he's using Zoom, but and then live streams it on Facebook. But you don't need Zoom to live stream from Facebook. You can stream directly to Facebook too. Okay, but I since I had the service and so forth, and we can manage questions and so forth. So that's why I chose to use the Zoom, and I already have the service. That's why.
I actually have Zoom too, but I'm not so familiar with it. And
Mhm.
I was kind of used to my blog talk thing, but I like this. I like that it's video, and that I guess I didn't feel too embarrassed about showing my face. I,
I don't see why you would. And you've got a really great tan right at the moment.
Thank you.
I guess it's the lighting too. So
Yeah, it's the light. I have this pink light, so we'll see when I
cool,
have a
cool.
regular light going on. Um, but I appreciate everybody bearing with me and my technical issues. I just really had a great time talking with you, Franco, and hearing all that information. I feel very uplifted, and I know that a lot of the people tuning in tonight did. And I hope that we can talk again
Yeah,
in the
well,
future.
I'm sure we will.
So, and I'll see you soon at the retreat.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, please give a hug to Kimberly from me.
I will. I
And
will. And I thank
much,
you. I thank you for putting this together and promoting it and so forth. And I thank you for collecting the questions and then asking the questions and your input and everything else. And yeah, it was a great little. And I thank everybody that was on with us for participating and for really being exposed to stuff that will actually trigger you to become a grander aspect of yourself.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Franco. It was a
Thank you.
great pleasure to be with you as always, and with everybody here tonight. Uh, Good night and good day wherever you are. Much love to everyone. Right, good night,
Good
Franco.
night.
Thanks so much. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.